We talked about for loops in a previous video. Another kind of loop is the while loop. And the first example I'm going to show you is actually a stupid one, because what I'm doing is something that could easily be done with a for loop, and a for loop would be a better choice. So what I have done is I've defined a variable. I have initialized it with let, so its value can be changed. And then I have the essential opening line of a while loop, while, in parentheses, some condition. If that's true, then do this stuff that is between the curly brackets. And when that stuff is done, come back, evaluate the condition again. If it's still true, do this again. Come back, evaluate this. If it's still true, do this again. Okay, so I'm going to hit return. And really, you could have done this with a for loop instead. So I'm going to go over to Replit to show you a better use of a while loop, because I'm saying this would be better as a for loop because we know when it's going to end. We apparently know that we want to print from 1 through 5, right? Because we said as long as x is less than 6, do this, etc. Well, that is a fixed ending. We know we are going to print 1 through 5. So a better example is when we don't know how many times we need the loop to run. And often that's because something random is happening, something somewhere else in our code is being affected by other things, other conditions, other variables. And we use the while loop because we don't know how many times we need it to run. So this is an example of how a while loop works really well when we don't know. So I have made an array full of verbs about a fight, right? Things you might do in a fight, such as dodge or kick or run away. And I start out with an option that is violent. I'm going to punch first. And my while loop says, while my option is not equal to run away. Now I know that my option could become equal to run away because that is a string in my array. It exists, right? Then I get a random number. I use it as my index to get one of the strings out of my array. So based on the random number, I'm going to randomly pull one of the items out of my array, and I'm going to put it in this sentence. So the sentence is going to say things like you punch, you slap, you run away, okay? As long as the thing that was randomly pulled is not this, if it's any of the other items, then the loop will come back and run again. As soon as run away has been pulled out of the array, it's going to console log this, and then the while loop ends because the condition, when it comes back up here, my option is not equivalent to run away, no longer true. When it's no longer true, we go below the while loop and we do whatever code comes after it. So you're going to see this in action when I hit run. Now, because we have a random number pulling in here, right? Every time the loop runs, I get a random number and I put it into the index referring to my array, and I get one of the values out of my array. So every time I hit run, I am going to get a different result. I am going to get different words in different order. I'm going to get a different number of words. But what you'll notice as I'm doing this is that what always happens very reliably is the last thing is you run away. None of the other things were ever you run away. And after run away is the item picked from the array. We leave the while loop and we go on to the code that comes after the end of the while loop. So it's important to understand how the while loop works. It's really powerful, and it's often used in game situations where you're not sure whether like the enemy is going to win or the hero is going to win. You can use a random number and mix things up a little bit. There's a lot of situations where the while loop is what you really want, even when there's not a random number, because other code in your program is doing things and you can't know in advance which things were done. So when the code block inside your loop has to run an unknown number of times, that is when you're going to choose a while loop. And the starting condition is going to need to be true, and sometime in the looping, on one of the loops, that condition will have to become false, right? So the value of this begins as true, and at some point it must become false, or else your loop runs forever. That's never good. So I hope you understand the difference between a while loop and a for loop, and you can make a good choice about which one to use in your own scripts.